Okay, hi everyone. I hope you all had a great lunch. Thank you so much for once again for joining us today. My name is Shipra. I'm an associate director at YLAC. YLAC stands for Young Leaders for Active Citizenship. You must have seen a lot of us and our team members running around with volunteer and team badges, incessantly emailing you for RSVPs. That has all been us. But thank you so much for showing up. On a really cold day. At WILAC, our mission has always been to engage young people in democratic processes. We firmly believe that their participation is not only beneficial, but imperative to ensuring successful and meaningful democracies. Young people bring fresh perspective, innovative ideas, and deep commitment to the values of justice and inclusion, qualities essential to strengthening democratic systems. Over the years, we have seen the engagement of young people evolve. Through many of our programs, we've seen young people embed themselves within the policy ecosystem, driving real and meaningful change. We also believe this evolution is not only the beginning, it should and must culminate in increased representation of young voices, eventually leading to more young people contesting elections and shaping governance directly. The vision aligns with our belief in value-based politics, a form of politics where nuanced thinking and empathetic leadership can come to the forefront. This is one of the core reasons why we partnered with Access Polity to run the School of Campaigners in the past month. As we embark on today's second panel, we're very excited to host our esteemed speakers. We hope we will all engage meaningfully, ask questions, and have core takeaways from the session itself. I want to hand over to Venika from our team, who's going to do the introduction for the panelists, and I hope you all have a great session. Venika, over to you.
Hello everyone, I hope we're feeling very energized for the next panel. I know lunch makes us all a little sleepy, but we have some great speakers here who will hopefully really be able to engage you and talk about how to make politics safe and viable for women. As we discussed in the first panel, it's not an easy world out there for women in general, but especially in politics, which can sometimes be, as some of us already talked about, a particularly trialsome kind of opportunity. How can we make this a much safer, a much more equitable playing field, right? So we're joined by Sara Abdullah Pilot, the co-founder of CEQUIN, which is Center for Equality and Inclusion, which is a prominent, with over 20 years of experience in both grassroots and strategic levels. She advocates for women's empowerment, mental health, education reform, and women's political leadership. Sara's worked with UN Women, chaired the Women's Committee at All India Football Federation, and leads initiatives focused on gender equality, sports for development, and women's leadership, uplifting particularly marginalized communities. We're also joined by Charu Pragya, who's the spokesperson for the BJP. She's an eminent lawyer and an expert in governance, policy, and civic issues. She serves on the steering committee on Australia-India Youth Dialogue and is an adjunctor for the anti-doping discriminatory panel for the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. She has various certifications from Harvard and Cambridge in climate change and leadership, and she's also a former internationally ranked pistol shooter with multiple international medals for India. As you can see, a very impressive two-person panel. We're also actually we don't have Kuthinda and Vinta joining us, but I'll just give them a brief introduction. They've sent their video messages, which we'll show shortly. But Vinta used to be the former Director of Programming at Z Network, and she now runs the Daily Eye, an online media organization. Kuthinda is also the former Member of Parliament from Thailand. They both wanted to be here very badly, could not make it for personal reasons, but we're very excited they've sent short video messages, so we'll continue with that first.
Hello everyone, I'm Vinta Nanda, a filmmaker, creative activist, and the editor of the Daily Eye. While I deeply regret being unable to join you in person today due to an unexpected health issue, I'm honored to contribute to this vital discussion on making politics safe and viable for women. My heartfelt thanks to the School of Campaigners, Access Polity, and all the organizers for inviting me to be a part of this remarkable initiative. As a filmmaker and someone who has been engaged in creative activism for years, I have witnessed the power of storytelling and advocacy in amplifying women's voices and advancing their participation in public life. It is heartening to see platforms like this conclave take a bold step towards addressing the systemic barriers women face in politics. At the same time, I approach this topic with both hope and trepidation. I am hopeful because I firmly believe that women's participation in politics can and will play a pivotal role in saving democracy during these very challenging times. Women's voices, their resilience, and determination have always been at the forefront of movements for equality and justice. However, my concern lies in the diminishing strength of democracies worldwide. The growing chasm between the privileged and the underprivileged has placed democracy under serious threat. This erosion of democratic values could jeopardize the progress we have fought for over decades. Women who have driven transformative movements for more than 50 years now may find themselves once again sidelined, pushed back into the metaphorical walls where they have been confined for centuries. We must remember and remind the world that the safety and well-being of humanity depend on the safety of women. The universe we inhabit is only truly safe if it is safe for women. If thinkers, strategists, and decision makers of the future fail to safeguard women's participation, we risk falling into a rising tide of fascism that could trap humanity in a darkness from which it may take generations to emerge. This is why conversations like these are crucial. Together we can confront these challenges, amplify the urgency of inclusive leadership, and build a framework that will ensure women's voices are never silenced. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts today. I wish you all a successful and inspiring conclave. Let us continue to champion equality, safety, and democracy for women, for humanity, and for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, the organizers of School Campaigners, for having me from afar. Regarding the question of whether Thailand has legal framework to protect women in different spheres of life, of work context, or even in political context. Yes, we do. We do have CEDAW, we do have criminal code that include harassment, we do have cyber crime act that also include cyber harassment. However, these are not implemented properly. And when it comes to the political context, then it becomes even more complicated, because then women with political status would have an issue of revealing themselves as someone who's the victim of harassment or of that. And also the mechanism of whistleblowers does not really exist. Therefore, it becomes even more difficult for these women with status and their supporters to really help them. So I think Thailand has a lot to work on and has a lot to do regarding the frameworks, and as well as internal mechanism within the political parties. Many of the political parties may not have the internal complaint mechanism or the committee to deal with the harassment issues, especially when it comes to women. In my political movement, we do have that particular mechanism, but a lot to be improved, especially the training and the education of everybody involved, all the stakeholders that are involved in these issues. I think at the end of the day, the education and the training and the awareness raising is one of the top priorities that we need to make sure that it happens not later than today. Thank you.
Yes, over to you, Kamshi.
With that, okay, I think I'm audible enough, but with that, I do invite both of my panelists, Sarah and Charu, to join me on the panel. Thank you so much. Yeah, please.
Hello? Yeah.
Superb. I think with the two videos, we have set the context on what we are going to discuss even further, that we are talking about presence of laws, but also lack of implementation. But even before we get there, I would like to start this panel with one statement that is my North Star guiding this conversation, which is that how will we look forward if we are constantly watching our back? As women, in private or public spaces, we're constantly looking if there's somebody behind, you're walking on a dark street, you're concerned for your safety. How will we create, how will we be innovative? And there are multiple studies that show that your mental health plays a critical role when you want to be creative, when you want to be innovative, when you want to take on challenges. The more you're in the survival mode, the more you're on the edge all the time, you're unlikely to create something new. And politics demands you to create new all the time. It is a very innovative, uncertain, unpredictable career. You have to come up with punchlines, you have to come up with policies, you have to come up with responses. That demand in itself is too much to make from a certain community right now we're talking about, which is constantly on the edge, on the margins. So with that, I open this discussion, and I have two brilliant panelists who will talk about their experiences from, I call it Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar, and also Rajniti perspective, so the four quadrangle of it. My first question to you, Sara, is that you've seen politics around you, and you've been both like an active, passive, but also like you've done so much work at the intersection of, say, sports, mental health. What are some of the things that you have experienced when women come into these very open careers, in public careers? How do they experience these fields? And if you would like to share some of your experiences as well.
I have been working in this area for, I'd say, almost 20 years now. I started my NGO, which is CEQUIN, the Center for Equity and Inclusion, 16 years ago. So my perspective is very much from that viewpoint of the work that we've done both at the grassroots level, from the villages in Mewat, and we work at various levels, including with brilliant politicians like Charu. We recently had an interaction in Goa. So because the way we see it, the way I see it, is that it's an approach that has to be taken very holistically. So if we're talking about women being safe in politics, you can't take that as one, oh, we'll fix this issue. You have to go back many, many steps, where we then go to these villages in Mewat and we look at the girls over there. And it's only that's going to feed up through the levels. So, this is not something that has a quick answer. It's not even about, oh, the political parties, you should make sure that, 50% of women stand for election. Of course. I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't help. Everything helps. But we also don't want tokenism. It's not about that one woman is a chief minister, or one woman is a prime minister, or one woman is the president, and it's a kind of for show. What is actually happening on the ground with women, for example, women who are in active politics, what's happening to the girls in the village who, when they are 12 or 13, are told that you're not allowed to go to school anymore and that it's time for you to get married. So we need to look at this in terms of the broader structure of patriarchy, of what is it and why is it that in our society that women are being held back? Why is there this fear? What is it that we're not able to crack this? It was many years ago, actually, during the Congress government, and Mr. Chidambaram was the minister at the time, and the government was the Congress government even in Delhi. And CEQUIN had done a study on how safe is Delhi for women. And we actually did both. We questioned people and asked them, firstly, have you faced violence in public? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, and unfortunately a very high number of respondents had. But then the other question we asked them was, how safe do you feel? You see, I may not have actually been on the receiving end of any kind of harassment and violence, but if I feel unsafe, it's actually almost the same. So if I feel unsafe, I will not access public space. I will not use public transport. It doesn't matter whether something has happened to me. If my daughter wants to go to work and her work hours are late in the night or their shift work, if I feel she is unsafe, it is as the same as her actually being unsafe as something actually having happened. So this question at that time was raised in Parliament, that you have some 98% of women in Delhi are saying that they feel unsafe. And it's a real shame that from then to now, and I think that was about probably 12 or 13 years ago, I think if we repeated the same questionnaire, I don't think you would come up with some vastly different answers. I mean, I think women would still turn around and say, actually, we do feel unsafe. Maybe you'd have more of them who'll say, well, we have no choices, we have to earn for our families, or, we are going to go to college, so therefore we access public transport. But do we feel safe about it? Not necessarily. So we really need to unpick. It's a conversation that needs to take place at many levels, and to unpick and see that what is it, this thing of feeling unsafe, where does that come from? And who do we need to have these conversations with? Is it that girl who wants to go to work? And is the onus on her? That, okay, you fight society, you talk about Samaj and you talk about everybody. Should you go and fight everyone, fight the brothers and your father and, be out there like the warrior to be able to get your college degree? Or is it all the stakeholders? Is it you, me, everybody out there in society that needs to be a part of that conversation?
No, thank you.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. So thank you so much for that well-rounded answer, and setting us up for having a conversation about who the onus lies on. Usually we put the onus on women, even sometimes when we do a lot of training programs and women are the beneficiaries of that training program. We wonder, what are we changing around her to be able to access those trainings or even act on what they were trained on. So onus without agency is usually a very empty or a half-hearted attempt to change anything around women's access to not only safety resources but any kind of power. Also, with that, I will also share one of the important data points. So there is a representation that we moved to the Election Commission of India for, which is on the application of PoSH, which is a Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act of 2013 on political parties. Just for the context, right now, there is no popular political party that has instituted an ICC as such, or there's not a lot of conversation that we hear around what are the data points on sexual harassment that happens within a political party that is coming out. All political parties boast of having a lot of women in their cadres, as in their Mahila wing or women wing, but how many of them are actually going ahead and making it safe? One of the reports done by UN Women and Center for Social Research on violence against women in politics in South Asian countries revealed that 90% of women refrain from active involvement in politics on account of fear of violence and abuse. It is not actual abuse yet. They're just fearful, exactly what Sarah was talking about, the perception of fear. And nearly 50% of the respondents said that they faced verbal abuse, and 45% said physical violence and threats were common, particularly true during election campaigns. 67% of women politicians said perpetrators were male contestants, and 58% were party colleagues. Violence and harassment at the hands of colleagues is a reason why we see only women from political family in politics. So this is from the report, as I quote, because usually, and building on that, when we run training program for women to be in politics, a lot of them do not want to be the front-facing candidates. 67% from over like 5,000 women that we have interacted or worked with have said that they do not want to be in politics because of the fear of violence. They find it dirty and unsafe. On that, I really am looking towards my right. Charu, you are both a lawyer, a spokesperson, but I know you to be also a feminist who believes that all women should get this opportunity. You are a true blue champion for women's rights. How do we go ahead? I'm not even saying that we ponder on the problem further, but what are some of the steps being taken, maybe not only by your party that you can speak of, but overall in the global ecosystem to address this?
Kankshi, thank you very much. But let me begin by first congratulating you for School of Campaigners. And let me tell everyone, when Kangshi shared that idea with me, I was as excited as she was about it. We need a whole group of people supporting each other, teaching each other to be campaigners for each other and others, because we have to make politics safe for women, safe for everyone. We have discussed problems far too many times. All of us are aware of the problems, and I like this approach of looking at solutions to begin with. So Kangshi talks of the PoSH Act, and I'll only first speak as a lawyer, and then I'll talk of political things. So the definition of the PoSH Act is that it applies to a workplace. That is the word which is used very clearly in the act itself. In case of political parties, workplace is not very clearly defined. Everything can be a workplace. Your party headquarters is a workplace. You're attending a rally, it's a workplace. Maybe you're just walking down a street doing door-to-door campaigning, that becomes your workplace. You're in a television studio, that's where I do a lot of work, that's your workplace. So this unclear definition becomes a problem to legally get PoSH to apply in its current sense to political parties. And the other thing is the employer-employee relationship. Even that is not very clearly defined in a political party. A lot of people work for themselves. They are volunteers. They have nothing to do with the topmost leaders of their political party. How many people would be meeting the national president of the Bharatiya Janata Party or our honorable prime minister? They would be working at a local level, at a district level, at a mandal level, doing whatever they can because they believe in the cause of that party. So these were some of the legal challenges that were seen to make PoSH applicable to political parties. But the Supreme Court has asked the Election Commission of India to take a look at this, make recommendations and see how we can make it more applicable. Maybe some tweaks and tweens here, and Kangshi here has come up with a fantastic documentation. I am yet to go through it in totality, but the suggestions here look great. We can discuss that more in a little bit of time. I think one thing for women, and as both Sarah and Kangshi have said, it's not about actually facing violence, it's the anticipation of violence that could come your way. And this anticipation of facing violence at any point of time when you're visible or when you are being vocal is very persistent. It's not just in the women, it's in the families of women. In fact, if you notice a trend, so many times when even men are targeted online, they are targeted using the women around them, you know. तुम्हारी बीवी का ये, तुम्हारी पत्नी का ऐसे कर देंगे, your sister, your children even kids are not spared. And this ugly troll culture that we see with the rise of social media is far more cruel to women than it is to men. And even men are targeted using their women. So you imagine how much worse it is for women. There could be instances when someone who calls you Didi to your face is inboxing you all sorts of unspeakable things. So I think what we need to start looking at is making sure that every single political party has a disciplinary committee to begin with, if not a PoSH committee. I understand there are some provisions we still need to iron out. Bharatiya Janata Party has a disciplinary committee both at the state level and at the national level. We have to talk more about it. We have to make it very, very commonplace to have these kind of discussions. I think we also have to talk a lot more about having a personal life, because we've seen even women prime ministers are not spared. One moment of a glimpse into their personal life causes the entire world, media, social media, to go in an uproar against them. We have to normalize people having a work-life balance, and that has to be done by both the genders. Just women cannot do that. Unfortunately for women, everything becomes a topic of discussion. What you're wearing, how you're sitting, who you're speaking to, what time of the night you're going out, the color of your lipstick, every single thing becomes a topic of discussion. So I would just have very, very quick 3 suggestions. Make sure that this talk of disciplinary committees becomes common ground in every political party. Everybody should be well aware of who's a member of this disciplinary committee, what are the guidelines, how do I go about and complain, is there some kind of a Google form which is on my party's website, so on and so forth. The second thing is, let's please normalize people having a life outside of work, and more so when you are a woman. You have so many hats to wear In any case, women have a big struggle ahead of them when it comes to balancing their personal lives, being a mom, being a daughter, being a sister, and then being a working professional. And the third thing is, very strongly, if you see a woman facing online abuse, we need to speak out. We cannot say that it's not happening to me, why do I jump into this fight? That happens. Many a times you see these comments, say on X, but you don't want to reply because the minute you reply, the trollers will turn to you. So don't fear that. We have to protect each other, stand by each other, and only then we'll be able to put a stop to this kind of abuse, both online and offline.
I do have one important question here. Thank you for making those 3 interventions, and I made a categorization that one is at the party level, which is disciplinary or actually an ICC. Why not have a full, when there is a provision, but like I know it is a step that you are suggesting. Second one is at the, I would call it at the society level, that we have to normalize something which is like women having a work outside or life outside politics as well. And the third one is at the level of community, where the community steps up when a woman gets harassed. We sometimes don't even see it in the physical spaces, let alone the online spaces. There are so many instances now that a woman is getting raped and people are just making a video in the hood of the wind to post it online and not stopping the actual act, right? So in that, but I want to ask both of you, because both of you spoke about the perception of violence and the actual violence that women go through, the jeopardy that Kuntida was also talking about. When you come out with an instance that has happened against you, there are 2 things. One, a woman, even in a non-public life, fears getting reprimanded and her freedom being taken away. If she said that she was harassed, so she would rather not tell anyone about it, otherwise she will not go to school, college, work, whatever. In public life, if you came out, the party that is anyway like giving you very few opportunities will say, oh, she is the whistleblower, or she is not trustworthy, she's speaking against her own party members. Where does the loyalty really lie? And how do we navigate that? Because it's a double jeopardy. One, you are given very, very few opportunities. How do you stab yourself in the foot? So that is point number 1. So if you would like to speak about that, how do we create a culture where it is not only okay to speak about this, but other parties and everyone respecting when a woman comes out?
Again, with this, I feel that we need to take a step back and really, even in terms of the PoSH, or if we're talking about somebody having the strength or the courage or the support to go and report something, actually the way I look at it is that we shouldn't be getting to that point. It's too late if we're already only talking about a woman reporting and the infrastructure and the institutions. That's not to say we shouldn't talk about it, but actually the thing is that what can we do? And this is where CEQUIN, this is sort of where we work, and this is where our focus is that how can we create a society where we are not having to only strengthen those institutions? How about we put more focus in those instances not happening? So at CEQUIN, for example, we've just recently done, and we're in the midst of a very exciting campaign where we're working with about 50 young male influencers, because there's so much of conversation about online and online trolling, and we have people like Andrew Tate and this, toxic masculinity. But the point is that social media is here to stay. You like it, you don't like it, and there are pros and cons. But I mean, this is not something where, you may have Australia passing laws that, no children under 16 can have a phone or whatever, be on social media. But, sooner rather than later, they will be. And how do we use this space in a more positive way? So what we've done, again, talking about this idea of mardangi, of masculinity. Is it about, I'm this macho man and, the izzat of my wife or my daughter, like, we spoke about. But what is izzat? I mean, for a man, izzat is what? It's morality, right? It's that, what is my ethics? Then that is where izzat is located for a man. With a woman, izzat is all about her body, is about, that izzat is located in her sexuality. Why? this is what Charu was talking about. I mean, in a way that, you know, why a woman cannot have a private life, or a woman can't be to go out. And if she goes out, it only has to be to go to parliament, or it only has to be a teacher and to go to school. Can she not have leisure time? And then again, so it's the izzat of the entire village is located in the body of this woman. That, oh, because of the clothes that she's wearing, or because of the way that she's dressing, or because of her behavior. So we're trying to change the conversation. So we have these men who are influencers, and they may be travel bloggers, they may be chefs, they may be talking about fashion, but our conversations with them, and we had them at a retreat like this for 4 days, to talk about these issues when we talk about masculinity. And it's not just for the, you know, the sake of the girl, or you're doing charity for the woman to be so nice and not speak in a, you know, bad way or to troll them, but it's also for them, because actually a lot of men, the pressure that boys and men feel to be a certain way. I mean, there's this thing that said, you know, about boys don't cry, but it is something like yesterday when I went to Mewat, there were these little boys there, and they were saying, हाँ नहीं ठीक है, हम समझ गया अब कि अगर मुझे दर्द हुआ या अगर मुझे कुछ ठीक नहीं लगा तो मैं रो सकता हूँ. I mean, he was being so sweet about it, and you realize that this is actually the reality. For him, he was too scared otherwise to express any kind of emotion. So then you have to put this front of, oh, I'm going to be the macho male, and I'm going to be the head of the household. And, you know, we had a boy in Jamia who what he wanted to do was dance. But it was not accepted. It was not accepted in his home that a man, a boy, should be a dancer. And he came to CEQUIN, and we did a lot of things for over years, and now he is in Bombay and he's opened a dance academy, which is wonderful. I mean, one feels so proud of him. So when we talk about a gender equitable society, it's not just that, oh, women should come to the top and the men should be at the bottom, and, you know, we'll turn everything on its head. That's not what we're talking about. The conversation is about equality, is about, when we talk about morality, is about values, a society that's based on values, that everybody also has equal opportunity. So, sorry, I know I'm not quite answering your question.
No, actually,
and I
you're
think
leading me to
probably-
ask the other question, the role of the influencers. You're actually quite answering the question, because we were talking about this even in the morning, that the feminism is not like opposite of patriarchy, that when women will rule the world and, you know, men have to be subdued. But actually, I love the project that you're talking about, but also what is the scale at which we need to see this kind of conversation happening? Because and I'm just picking data from the internet world, if you look at the kind of misogynistic content that is out there, it almost like, you know, like for one progressive content, there is at least 4 to 5 negative regressive content. So what is the kind of scale? And I'm very interested in what you're saying, that it is not only through a direct conversation about politics, but through indirect approaches, like could be a travel blogger. What role can these influencers play in the daily life, and also permeate that into the political conversation? What usually happens is that these conversations are not catchy enough to win elections. The school of campaigners is trying to like train campaigners to win elections with these very difficult, very woke ideas. How do you make them palatable to a politician who say never exposed to that idea?
Well, I mean, I think Charu can tell us how palatable these ideas are to politicians. I'm not sort of too well in that kind of, that's not my world. But I think that, I mean, even this thing that is this something that can win elections? Again, I think if we have those conversations and you look about winnability of seats, actually the winnability of women, when they are given the opportunity to fight the seats, they actually do extremely well. So it's not that, again, oh God, if we're going to give this seat to a woman, she's definitely going to lose the election. It's the opposite. But these conversations, again, you know, people talk about, oh, when, you know, if you're going to have women leaders, you have to work with them, you have to train them, you have to build their capacities. Again, I'm not saying that's not true, but do we ever say that for men? Are we saying that all the men who are politicians, whether it's at Sarpanch level, Panchayat level, MLA level or MP level, that they are all trained, that they all have some degrees in political science or, you know, international relations or anything? No, I don't think so. I don't think that you have to have been in a classroom and, you know, have learned the skills of being a politician in order to go then to your political office and say that, you know, I would like the opportunity to fight the election. But for a woman, it's like, oh, well, we have to really, you know, make sure that if we've got 33% reservation coming in, where are we going to find these women who are capable? That's not fair, because we're not saying that all the men who are fighting elections are capable and we've done training programs with them. Women, you know, also, again, to be very stereotypical, but let's say a woman who has run a home, she has done budgeting in her home, she has looked after a family, she has looked after, if you talk about relations and relationships, she's navigated society. So, I mean, again, it's very patronizing to say that, oh, if you're a woman, I'm sure that Charu didn't have to sit and have classes on how to, you know, be a political leader or the spokesperson as any other man who's a spokesperson over there. But for a woman, these are the kind of, you know, again, very convenient excuses to put out. Acha train karenge to fir aage dekhenge. RWAs, I'm sure a lot of you are members of RWAs. The mass majority are men. There are very few women, or market trading associations. So why only look at politicians? Why only look at MPs or MLAs? And are those RWA officials some particularly very well trained? No, but they have the opportunity. They have the voice. It's power. It's control. Public space. They're out there, and the women are marginalized.
That's very true. Over to you for your response on my question, Charu.
So, you know, there's also this issue that the word feminism or being a feminist now also has a negative connotation, because I don't think it is understood in its clear sense. A lot of the times when someone says, oh, I'm a feminist, it's looked upon as the Western definition of feminism, which is very different from feminism in India or feminism in our part of the world. Because, you know, we come from a world where mothers were always given far more importance, because we talk about Krishna's mother, we talk about Bhagwan Shri Krishna's mother, we talk about Shivaji being such a great warrior, but we always give due reverence to his mother. So we come from that kind of a culture where women have been scholars, they've been political leaders, they've been advisors, they've been artists, and also homemakers, making sure the next generation is taken care of in the right way. But with thousands of years of invasion, that changed, and now this Western concept of feminism is what remains in the mind of so many people. You know, take your shirt off, that is feminism. But that's not what we are talking about. I think that we have to remember this is about cooperation, not competition. So when we talk about giving women equal opportunity, it is not in competition with men. It is in cooperation with men for the betterment of society. And that is what we had for thousands of years, and that is what we are striving to bring back. Allow them a voice, allow them a choice. Why is it that we must judge? So if I become a doctor today, if I'm a surgeon, and if I decide to stay home for 5 years to raise a child, I'm still going to be judged. It's not like the judgment is one way. People are still going to come and tell me, you've studied for 10 long years to reach this stage, and what are you doing now? You're sitting at home and raising a child. So the fact is that this choice cannot be taken away from women. You want to go out and work? Please do. You want to stay at home, take a break? Please do. It has to be your choice, and you have to be able to control your life with the cooperation of your family members. You don't have to be in competition with them. Sara, thank you for pointing out that politics is a reflection of our society. So if we have 7% women judges in high courts and supreme courts, the judgments are going to reflect that. If we have barely 11% surgeons who are women, society is going to reflect that. Architects, whether you talk about political leaders, and political leadership, at least at the parliamentary level, is something that is discussed so much. Look at our state assemblies. Nagaland got its first woman MLA now, less than 2 years ago. Now, over 75 years after independence. And you know, we cannot hide from the fact that a lot more needs to be done to give women a platform, and that begins with safety. You know, it is said that the least you can do to give a woman a safe environment is to just light up her city. Make sure there are no dark corners and alleyways where incidents could happen, where CCTVs are not working. I think it begins there. Physical safety is very important. Feeling safe is very important. That comes from support from your family. That comes from support from your society. Like I said, I think we should also start a campaign. We tried to do that a couple of years ago. We started it online and we said, point out corners in Delhi which don't have a street light. Let's make Delhi safer in whatever little ways that we can. We can't go and buy CCTV cameras and put them there. We can write letters to councillors for sure. We can make sure these lights come up. So concrete measures definitely need to be taken, and I think women no longer are poster girls of political parties when it comes to empowerment. You cannot give one position to one woman and that is it. That's not how it's going to be. Data shows that with the limited number of seats women contest on, they win. So if you see how many tickets were given to women leaders, if you look at the bigger parties, Bharatiya Janata Party gave tickets to around 14% women, Congress gave to around 8% women. So if you look at that kind of data and then you look at the representation in parliament, it shows that when you trust her, when you allow her the opportunity to work on ground, she wins. She gets you those results, and she actually administers with a lot of compassion, with a very different point of view, and that needs to come in. I'm just going to also take a second here and mention this one very interesting thing I read about once. When we talk about a feminist approach to things, it's not necessary that it's being led by a woman. For example, because a man can also have a feminist approach. It just basically means that you are talking about equality and inclusion. You are talking about ensuring that everybody has an equal opportunity to represent themselves. So the approach has to be feminist, even if it is not being led by a woman.
Thank you, because today, as I said in the first panel, there was a world painted where it's a feminist world. And in every way, it's a mindset, right? It's something that you approach with, and as we rightly know, that anybody could be on any side of the leaning ideologically and in approach. But at the same time, the final question on this, and then we will open up for a round of questionnaires. The two questions that I want to ask, one question final to both of you I want to ask is the viability of being in any career that is, like, again, when we are talking about women in politics, politics in itself is not a remunerating field, right? You don't get like paid to do the everyday job, everyday chore of just being a believer of that ideology. But the fact that the viability of being in politics in itself is so much at question, how do we expect women to be put into broken systems, right? Where you are expecting women to go and miraculously change in a system that is so broken. How do we also make sure that the infrastructure, the systems are also ready to get them in? There are conversations about that women are looked at as a liability as a resource and not as a full resource, because they will be met with motherhood or marriage or movement, right? So that is one question, and the role of technology perhaps in increasing women's access to these opportunities in case they can't be there physically. So these are the two combined things, and can viability be increased if there's more access to technology, especially in politics, but in any kind of public life?
Charu very kindly passed the mic to me first, so I shall answer first. I think what Charu was saying, she made some brilliant points about, for example, in Delhi when we're talking about lighting. Very simple, when we talk about a place being safe for a woman, a city being safe for a woman, that is a huge one. So infrastructure, if we're talking about more women going into politics or more women being in assemblies, then what do we need to do? It could be a vicious circle. It could end up being ki, oh, acha, ye nahi hai, so therefore women, oh, it's not safe for women, so then sit at home because we don't have this. So I think at some point there also has to be, where there's a will, there's a way. And of course, there need to be those basics like a creche, for example. I mean, there has to be a creche in your assembly or in your political office or in your, political party, wherever it is that you're supposed to be working, for example. So some basics should be there. And I think some other things need to and will come up when you have more women that are physically present. If we wait for everything to be there and then we'll have more women coming up, I think that probably won't happen. The Reservation Act has been passed now. I think a lot of, at least at the time of the freedom fighters, they fought against it actually. There was a conversation about it, and at that time they said no. I think they felt very charged up that women had been seen everywhere and they were very much a part of the freedom fight and the freedom struggle. So they said, no, we don't need this. We will do it ourselves. Naturally, organically, it will happen. And unfortunately, I think democracy has failed women on that when we have come to a point where this reservation is required, because I think there is a sense of, you know, that mass number. You need that number. Otherwise, we're going to keep going between 11% in parliament, 11, 12, 13% like this. And I think you need to break that barrier, and you need that many more women over there in order for then a lot of these changes to take place. Because if we keep waiting, again, you just kind of keep sitting and saying, ki, acha, ab ye nahi hai, wo nahi hai. I know, I mean, I'm sure Charu has also experienced this. I know when I was on the board of the All India Football Federation, the AIFF, and we used to have these executive committee meetings. In the early days, I was the only woman there, and in a room this size. And I used to ask the co-founder of CEQUIN, Laura, to come with me. I spoke, I sat at the table, but it just felt so awkward for me. And this is someone who's, you know, educated, traveled, you know, there's no, I mean, why would I feel so uncomfortable? But even I felt uncomfortable. I just needed one person just to be there amongst this sea of men. And so if you had that kind of reservation, let's say, and if they ensured that on this board there's a third, there needs to be 33% women over here, then I wouldn't have had to ask somebody else to be there. I would have felt more confident, and from day one to ask questions of the rest of the board members about, well, where is the money going to AIFF? How much money are you giving to women's football? What is the gender budgeting that's going on? That took, I mean, I feel I didn't hit the ground running on day one because it was me and everybody else. And then, yes, over the years, those things changed, and then there were more women. So I think a part of it is just having more women out there, having more women on the street, just seeing women in various walks of life.
Right, because you just spoke of crashes, that reminded me of how when I was like very early on in my political career, I was in a political rally, and the man was the contestant, but his wife was with him on the campaign trail. And me and the wife essentially bonded over the fact that there are no toilets and we'll have to hold each other's hand, cover for each other, and like very high profile candidate, and the wife is just holding my hand throughout the entire rally because we have to find a corner where she can't take a man, and then I cover for her and she covers for her. And I want to mention this, one of Netri's alum, she is from Maharashtra. During the last elections, she started a petition to have portable toilets in election campaign rallies. And I'm very proud of that achievement. It was done by Tirtha, where at least putting this in the public narrative was also important, that I got kidney stones. This is a personal story. After 1 year of working in politics, I ended up with kidney stones because you don't even drink enough water, because, well, where will you urinate? So on campaign rallies and political offices, I get to go to a lot of political offices, right from the district to the state level, and you don't have access, and let alone political toilets. And I will name the state. I was in Lucknow, the assembly in Lucknow. The assembly didn't have a public toilet. It's a government office, one would imagine, right? It didn't have a toilet for a woman. It was basically locked. And I had to get it opened up. So as to your point, Sarah, that if there are enough women, say there are 50% women in your office, could be 100 women out of 200 people, you will have a toilet. But for one, it doesn't feel like the right economic decision, right? Like you will not open a toilet for one person. You'll be like 99 लोगों वाले में चली जाएगी, right? Like जो बाकी सब जहाँ जा रहे हैं, वहीं चली जाएगी. But the more you will increase women in those spaces, you will start thinking about their needs and put that in the infrastructure. So thank you for bringing that up, that it's both, it feeds into each other, that you have to keep doing the work, but demanding your rights so that it becomes easier for the other people to access. On to you for your notes. Sorry, Charu, yeah.
Thank you. I'm so glad the conversation of toilets has become commonplace. It was much needed.
And it's impossible to function without toilets, but women have done that. Up till now, whether you're a part of the campaign trail or you're contesting an election, you don't want to talk about these very basic human requirements. I need to go to the loo, where can I use one? In fact, usually, even when you're on a trail, you're surrounded with men, you don't want to tell them to stop and say, hold on for a minute, I need to look for a bathroom. And that makes you drink less and less water, fall sick, eventually start thinking that the physical hardship is a lot for me to bear. And God forbid, you can't complain to your family. They'll tell you, kuch aur karo, kuch behtar kar lo. That's the thing, and it's not just for women. Even young men are told by their families, you have so much potential, do something else. And that is something that our generation is working really hard to change. So now if you look around, you'll find leaders who are very well educated, who are here with the right mindset, here to do the right thing. Women cannot be looked upon as a liability, but a lot of that depends on women too. Because if on one side you're going to be saying that for 4 days a month I'm going to be incapacitated, I need menstrual leave, and then on the other side you say I want to be a part of the frontline combat in the Indian Army, it doesn't go together. You cannot come back from whatever place you have been posted at. So this discussion is also a very logical one, because these questions come up, because on one side you say, let's give a really, really long maternity leave, but on the other side, are companies able to take the burden of paying salaries for an extended period of time? What happens to these really small companies which have 5, 6, 7 employees? Can they afraid to lose them? Are they going to hire people keeping that in mind or not? So these conversations need to be made more normal. It's okay to tell a man I'm on my period, because even a man can get tummy ache or food poisoning. So why make it so taboo and so hush hush? I think let's remember one thing. For girls, the struggle begins from before she's even born, female infanticide. Then onwards, you go to school, you fight to remain in school, you go to college, you have to make sure that you have an employable skill, and all of that is at the same time juggled with making sure you're able to look after your family. Technology makes a lot of difference, and technology has been used by people in our country very effectively, especially after COVID. I think some of the gifts that COVID has given us is this understanding that we can leverage technology and we can be in all sorts of places just sitting at home. It's made lives better for women. We can attend rural rallies, we can keep an eye on people, we can be in conversation with people so many times. And I'm going to draw another personal story. So when I first joined the Yuva Morcha of Bharatiya Janata Party, Anurag Thakurji was the president. So there was a male president. So there was this corridor conversation, this locker room conversation, backslapping. He's amongst the people all the time, no matter what time of the day or night it is, midnight, no problem, I'm here. But when a woman takes over and she takes the lead, a lot of that stops. That locker room conversation gets a full stop. People don't want to have that kind of a conversation anymore. She doesn't want to walk out on the streets and sit in the parking lot, in the middle of the night, laughing about things which are completely unrelated to work. And those things are looked upon as something which take away bonding. Political parties, campaigns, all of it work a lot on bonding. You're not getting paid. All you're getting is this incentive that you're doing good work and you're enjoying what you're doing. So when those things get impacted, the woman's psyche gets impacted. The threat of violence, whether physically or online, is something which impacts your psyche. There are 60% women who want to be in public life, and this was a study which was done by UN Women in India, Pakistan and Nepal. Over 60% women they spoke to said that they would love to be in public life, but they're afraid to be there because they fear violence. Again, similar. Yeah, very similar. 60% is a massive number. How do you think the world will look if these 60% just jumped into the political fray and they said, here we are? Women also need to start speaking up within their political parties. Open your mouth and ask for what you want. Try. Don't think कि अभी मेरा turn नहीं आया, अभी reservation नहीं लगा है, अगली बार का wait करेंगे. Next election is going to be our election. There's no harm in asking. And again, women usually don't do that. Women don't negotiate for salaries. Forget asking for a ticket to contest an election. So negotiate everything, please. Ask for what you feel you deserve. You're working twice as hard as men, I assure you.
Lovely.
On that note, I would be opening the floor, that very powerful note, ask away. Please ask away your questions as well. So I'll be opening it up for questions. Before that, I also see Anish, who's joined a political party after a very successful run in the policy space. He does? Okay. One intervention, if I may take from you, Anish. Anish, could you just stand up for the privilege of the crowd, which is that Anish has taken the top spot of a spokesperson in the NCP. And if I may, and I don't want to only make it about the identity that is also your sexuality, but it has been hard in one way or the other. But if you were to talk about both the safety, the viability, and the perception that usually comes for people who do not have these top spots otherwise, what are some of the thoughts that you might want to just share from your experience, or how would you like to reimagine politics?
Wow, putting me on the spot.
Firstly, thank you very much for that very gentle and kind introduction. I want to start off by saying that, very often these conversations happen with a room full of men, not a room full of women. So I'm glad that we have gender diversity, at least in these rooms. And one of the first things that I say when people ask, how can you make it easier for others, is to say that very often men are told, hire more women. And I keep telling men the opposite thing, which is work for more women. Because I think automatically when you are sitting in a room and told to hire more women, you assume that you're already on the top spot, right? So the sort of inversion of that hierarchy to say that you should be comfortable working for women needs to happen earlier. And I think going one step further, I think it's become really easy because my party is led by a woman and my boss is a woman, Supriya Sule. And it's been a remarkable difference, right? I think as an out gay man, I know that I have an ally in her. I think it makes a big difference in knowing that you can navigate a very complex political terrain where you also have a lot of internal differences to sort out and a sort of complex minefield to navigate, to know that there's somebody who's got your back. But I think the one intervention that I'd like to make and to ask both of you is, in such a scenario, right, where you're seeing women in leadership positions struggling, like you said, Charu, to ask for that ticket, what role can those around them play? Because often I've seen this, right, where the urge is, I should apply for that ticket. How do we also reorient that and say, someone in your party who needs to be supported, who's a woman, can have someone rallying behind her? How do we generate systems of support that ensure that women can find that courage to take those decisions?
Lovely. Thank you so much. Anybody? Yeah, can we get the mic back? You want to take that first?
I mean, I think this goes back to what I was saying about our campaign with influencers. It's about other people also standing up for that woman. It's about, someone's brother saying, yeah, don't give up, go for it, go for that meeting, maybe go with her, drop her, drive her, support her, let her, if she has a dream, whatever that may be, it may be the captain of the football team, it may be to be the prime minister. So what can we do as the men in? So we start as the family, then it becomes the school, or there are schools that stop at class 6. How do we add on those classes, class 7, class 8, class 9? How do we make sure that public transport is safe? I mean, I think wherever we are, it is about where you are standing, where you are sitting right now. It's not about someone else. It's not that, it's Charu's problem. She's in a political party, so now she needs to do X, Y, Z. It's not your problem because, it's not anyone's problem. It is that where I am sitting. So I am CEQUIN, I have an NGO. These are the things that I can do. And I think everyone, there is no one sitting here in this room who cannot play a part in this. There is, in whatever small way. It may be the smallest way in your own family, and it may be at a bigger level. You may be the CEO of a company. You may be anywhere. You talk about trolling online, that do you support that woman who's being trolled? You don't have to know the person. You don't have to have a personal relationship with them. But do you stand up for their right to be heard, for their right to not face violence? So I think if all of us just take that pledge internally, I'm not even saying stand up here and write it on a piece of paper, but can we take that internal pledge that I will stand up and I will make sure if I have the opportunity to be here, you have the opportunity to be here, we all have such a wonderful opportunity to be here, so can I also give that support to someone else who needs it?
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that.
We always anticipate kindness coming our way. But we've heard about the circle of kindness. It's going to come your way when you are being kind to someone. Same thing applies in politics. You want other people to speak up for you, to advocate for you. Are you advocating for anyone? Are you speaking up about anyone? We have more often seen that this mentee-mentor relationship could be lacking, and especially for women, it's very difficult to find the correct kind of a mentor in political parties. But whatever level you are at, can you mentor someone? Can it just be even a school-going high school kid today? If you do that, I promise you, the goodwill that you're putting out in the world is going to come back to you. At the end of the day, politics is about having a lot of people support you. See, whether we like it or we don't, that's how it works. Whether it's an elected position or a nominated position, how do you win over people? By making sure that they know you always have their back and you're going to be by their side. So speak up for others, so when the time is right, they will all collectively speak up for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, I will take, wow, I have so many questions in the room. So can we bundle some questions together? I see one Reena's hand. वो भी कर देना, पर हम पहले सवाल ले लेते हैं.
Because this is about not about identity politics, not about your gender. This is not about who you are and what you stand for. A lot of the times we are hesitant to take our place in the spotlight, fearing कोई मुझे accept नहीं करेगा, fearing that people are just going to have conversations. Sometimes all it takes is this one step forward, getting into the spotlight and realizing people are actually nice, they like you. People can be supportive, but you have to take that first step.
Charu is saying she likes you.
I do. He knows it.
Even though you were on the TV debating each other out. Okay, Reena, I see one hand there. And can someone help me with passing the mic? Neha, can I have you? Okay, thank you. Yes, Reena here, one person there. Yeah. First with Reena, and then you can pass the second mic as well.
Hi, this question is to Charu. You just mentioned that you gave your experience of that when you took over. There was there was a male boss earlier, and he had a style of working where he would probably work late nights, and and it's just not restricted to politics. The same thing is with corporate world. I think the way men work, the way they bond with teams, etc. Women also do it, but they do it in separate way because women have constraints in terms of time, late nights, travel, all of that. So I just need to ask you specifically in politics, how did you navigate that difference?
Lovely. Thank you for that question. Ma'am, your question. Can the mic be passed?
I actually found that pamphlet downstairs on extending the PoSH Act to political parties quite interesting. I wanted to draw your attention to a court case, A. Fernandez versus State of Goa, where there is now something known, I know it sounds weird, it's called a she box, which was earlier only for government employees. But Justice Hema Kohli in the Supreme Court, she had, it was in 2024, she said that it applies now to private organizations as well. So if you're having a case of sexual harassment, you can give your complaint to the ministry.
Right.
So does this apply to political parties? Can we do, what I'm getting is that since you mentioned corporates and women in politics are women workers as well.
Yes, that's a fair question, and because they don't fall either in the corporate or the government, that's why the entire debate around what's the relationship, and fair question. I will let one of them respond. One more question and then we can move to the answers.
My question is related to the culture, the question that we had earlier, and my point is that no matter what we talk about, India does have a rape culture. And that culture stems deep from how we are viewing women's role and how we view how the system, the patriarchal system exists, and it goes beyond 100 years. There's intersection or 1,000 years. It goes to the intersection of the violence that we see today, which is also in identities, the caste identity, and I feel that when we are talking about political parties, what do the panelists think that their role is in addressing the cultural issue and addressing the identity within those? What role do parties play in kind of
shifting the narrative? Okay, thank you. You want to take? Do we have one question for? Okay, I think Sarah's question is coming, but we'll come. We should. Yeah, if you can answer something. Okay.
It might be connected.
Connected? Is it a connected question? Go ahead, Vandana.
I don't need a mic.
Okay.
I can just, I don't know whether this is a question, but it's just something that came to my mind because I work in villages with rural women, with marginalized communities. And 80% of the India actually lives in the suburbs and the rural areas. So whenever we would, I mean, whatever you were saying makes 100% sense that we need to get, we need to make women to go to those spaces. But what do we do about the villages, you know? Because the conditioning is so deep that even the woman has accepted the suppression of the patriarchy and they have accepted the lifestyle. They've accepted that they do not have any right. And this kind of ideology, the self-imposed oppression, how do you deal with it? Because, you know, in the name of capacity building, we only have Salai Bunai Kadhai for rural women, right? we're just, I don't know how many years it has been, and we're still limited to Salai Bunai Kadhai or papad making or achar making, right? In the name of capacity building.
That's true.
How do you make them accountants? How do you make them managers? How do you actually make the rural education system inclusive enough? How do you make the rural professional culture inclusive enough so that these women can actually go into these spaces? Because, you know, the communities, and I work in like extremely interiors of our country, and I'm shocked. They're still living in 1970s and 1980s when it comes to gender norms, gender rights, and feminism. So, like, what do we do about the villages and the marginalized communities and the interiors of India where the constitution and its laws probably do not reach properly?
I'm sorry, I'm cutting out, just adding to it.
Oh, wow.
Do we have, no, just do we have any differentiate level towards it, like villages ke liye kuch aur hai, like what kind of?
Let the panelists respond to
Yes,
what
yes.
they've gotten, and then we can maybe do one more round. Yeah, go ahead.
So when we talk just broadly, when we're talking about culture, and just picking sort of a few random thoughts that I have on this one, is that I think it's not about that women need to be more like men. Like, I mean, Charu was talking about an ex-boss maybe, or his way of functioning. And I think there's a huge danger that for a woman to be successful or for a woman to be a good politician, she needs to be that like a man. And that is not necessary. I mean, I think women have skills. And it's not that all women, that if it's only women that are ruling the world, that the world is going to be perfect. Women are people, men are people. You have good, bad, decent, moral, immoral across the board. But I mean, I think the sort of skills that women can bring to the table, to a political party, to a corporate, to an institution, should be valued. And this also, I was very interested to hear what Charu was talking about, that in sort of Indian, in our way of thinking, that mothers, you know, it wasn't that if you go out and if you earn money, then you got respect. Actually, as a mother, as a homemaker, as a wife, you were given a huge amount of respect. So, I mean, a little bit tying into what you were saying, and I am not, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that a woman only has value if she is making papads or achar, or she shouldn't be into science or engineering. But what I'm saying is that actually anyone can be valued as a person, whatever they may be doing. Whether you are, I mean, can we say that if there's somebody in my building who is cleaning, that they're less valuable? I think they are more valuable, because if that building is not cleaned, then, I mean, and it's stinking and filthy, you cannot do even your daily work, right? So I think the value needs to be on whatever it is done, and that culture has to change, that a girl is valued, and we use football. I mean, when you talk about how do you change that, you know, the culture in a village, it's not easy. We're talking about mindset. Yes, you're talking about patriarchy, you're talking about hundreds of years of conditioning, but we do see that when you get these girls out there in the village, it breaks something, it changes something. Why? Because they are used to just sitting in their homes. If they're allowed to go to school, great. Most likely even that is not allowed. For them to go out in a maidan and they're just running, they're free, suddenly something changes. I mean, I know it sounds very far-fetched, but it is the truth. And then suddenly it's like they start to dream. Then it may be engineering, then it may be being an MLA, it may be anything, but just it changes. And then they realize, 1 second, I am an individual. I too have the right to dream. I too, and whatever those dreams may be. And so then those changes do take place. So if we talk about culture, but again, then it is about, you know, getting the men on board. You have to have the conversations with the men and the boys in the village. As much as the mothers, it's not that women don't, you know, keep going on with this, the patriarchy doesn't continue with women. It does. So it's about constant conversations.
And with that, I also want to add one thing. Yesterday here in one alternative room, we had like 15 stakeholders who work in different spaces in democracy, like in democracy, with different stakeholders. What we realize is that there needs to be a staircase ladder. Like you need to first inspire hope, like letting them out in the Maidan. The second time when they start dreaming, you need another support structure. So that staircase cannot be broken. You can't like have them like climb 2 steps and be like, okay, this is it. Now you have to like climb down, and that happens a lot with ambitious women because they do not have the next step up. So you have to build support system on each stage of a child's life, as you say. Similarly, at each stage of progression, and it could be a sliding progression sometimes, you need those support structures at every stage. So that's why we are doing an aggregation of all the stakeholders. Over to you, Charu, for the answers.
Okay, we'll start with the last question and then work upwards. So there have been a lot of initiatives by the government now to make sure the number of women in STEM goes up, not just women, girls in STEM. Vigyan Jyoti is a scholarship which is for girls in standard 9th to 12th, for them to work in STEM. There is Vice Kiran, which is for women scientists. So it's not like these initiatives are not there. It's going to take time for them to become more and more commonplace. There is also this fantastic organization, and because I'm not advertising for any, I'm not taking name, but they believe in asking women to get skilled for aspirational jobs. So when you're sitting in your villages and you're learning how to, for example, make papad, why can you not learn graphic designing? You are where you are, and you can be of so much use to so many companies and corporates and initiatives. So lots of things are starting like that. Unfortunately, there are many places where it might not have reached yet, but we can make an effort to that effect. I love doing that. I love telling girls to dream. So if you'll tell me the places where you work, I'll make sure to connect these people to you. We were talking about work culture. You know, I think we look at everything too much through a gender lens. I think a bit too much at times. Many a times we meet a man who likes to wake up at 5 a.m. and reach work at 8 a.m., get done by 5 p.m. and come back home at an early hour. And then there could be another one who wakes up at noon, reaches office in the afternoon and works till midnight. It's the same with women. It's fine if she doesn't want to stay out past midnight. People get used to it as long as she's good at her job. And that I cannot highlight enough. When it comes to women, meritocracy is extremely important. Merely reservation is not going to help us, because reservation needs to come with meritocracy. Meritocracy will come with capacity building, with skilling. And that is where our focus needs to be today. If somebody is a grassroots level worker, can we identify the potential people and tell them, how can we take you to the next level? Maybe you work with a political party, you make sure there is a department which helps them. That's what you need to do. So as long as you're good at your job, nobody cares what time you're working, as long as you're working.
Super. Because of the time, and I hope you've answered all the questions that you wanted to.
Did I miss
at
any?
this hour, I would like to...
Gayatri's I
Hello.
missed. Gayatri was talking about PoSH.
PoSH.
And
She-box.
You know, again, only from a strictly legal point of view, because there is no definition of employer-employee, because there is no definition of workplace. A lot of things become complicated. But let me tell you, political parties are an acknowledgement that there is this big, huge black hole, and they're working on it. So disciplinary committees are extremely strict and extremely active now. I'm speaking for my party, at least.
So just because that's a point that we've also covered in the petition, so in the representation, you can pick a copy, because the workplace in the act is also defined like if you have even 10 volunteers, and that's why we are saying political parties usually just has volunteers, so you don't need to have established remuneration-based worker, like employee-employee relationship. And workplace do include places like rallies, political offices, door-to-door campaigning, and like that is why it becomes much broader. However, how do you make sure that a woman going out on these experiences is able to come back to her own party to report when there is a harassment at the hand of a stranger, right? It could be at the hand of a stranger, sometimes not your own party colleague. And is that something that is identifiable? I think that is a bigger challenge, not only the employer-employee relationship, but like because they are volunteers and they're covered under the current act. And to your point, like the government and the private, political parties are registered as a trust or as a not-for-profit, like, you know, NGOs or trusts, and they fall under the ambit of the ECI. So it has to come out with its own guidelines. That's why. Yeah, thank you for that. With that, I will really have to close the panel, which I'm very sad to let you all go, but like this is wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, for giving such wonderful insights. Can I have, so we are actually giving you a small token of appreciation and love from our side. And I will call upon, yes, 2 of our fellows who would like to give you these tokens of love. Yes. Super. Can we take them out? Can you please take that out? Okay. Yes. So that's a. Yes.
That's amazing.
Super. Okay, I'll join you here. Can we all do a picture together? Come closer. Thank you so much. With that, you all can join us for the tea and coffee. Sneha, do you want to announce where is it?